Hi everybody, today's quick tip is going to take you through two parts of our CRM process. The first half is going to be the setup for your CRM, which is our follow-ups and sales leads integrations. And the second part is going to be the actual use. Now, sales leads and follow-ups follow a very similar process. So there's a lot of overlap, both in creation and use, but we're going to go through all of the key points that you need to get up and running with CRM. So without further ado, let's kick into RB. We're going to talk in general terms about follow-ups, but remember, most of this setup is duplicated for sales leads. Follow-up specifically can be used for all sorts of reminders for activities for employees. This is work that might need to be done for a customer, or a task that an employee needs to do in the store, or even a simple phone call or email to a client. To set this up, we are going to begin in our Company Setup tab. So we're going to access Tools and go to the Company Setup. From within Company Setup, we're going to begin with the CRM Follow-Up tab. This tab has all of the critical information that we need to create to use follow-ups in our RB environment. The first thing that we have to do is in the Types of Follow-Up box. We're going to define all of the different types of follow-ups that we want to use in RB. We're simply going to type a name and click Add in this field and using this action button to add the different types of follow-ups that we have in our practice. These follow-ups don't have to be grouped together, but they are going to appear in a drop-down list that we'll see a little bit later on. So it's important for organizational purposes to keep like or following tasks together. Again, not required, but a good idea. If some fields in your follow-up process are going to be required actions for your employees, we can mark them as required actions either when you're creating a follow-up for an employee or when you are saving a follow-up for an employee. And it's as simple as checking the checkbox on each of these items. Lastly, our setup for follow-ups might need some custom fields or other information that we want to include. If that's the case, we're going to name our custom fields in the custom field box. We can also identify an amount of time before a follow-up becomes stale or neglected, as RB will term it on your follow-ups report. This means that after a certain number of days, an action has not been taken, and the action will be flagged both for the employee and for a manager that's following up with that employee. The next item that we're going to switch to in our setup process is going to be under the CRM Events tab. When you switch to the CRM Events tab in Company Setup, you're going to be presented with what looks like a blank screen. But all of the events that you have identified for follow-ups and sales leads will be available in this drop-down. I'm going to select my follow-up event, and you're going to see some of the same event types that we set up on the previous screen. They're going to populate the different areas. If you've never set up an event before, your screen might also be blank at this point, and that's normal because right now we are going to craft the events that we want to take place for each follow-up. The process is the same. We're going to name our events and either add them, or if we make an error, we can select and delete an event from the list. I'm using the dynamic events area. This means that RB is going to base the timer for these events, how long an employee has to complete these actions, on the initial action creation date. So it is a flexible living timer. For example, if on the first day of the month I create an event, based on the days until due setting that I have established for each event, RB will count down before it makes that event neglected. So for example, if I have an inbound phone call, which happens on day 1, RB always starts counting on day 1, not on day 0. On day 2, I would expect my staff to return that phone call. That means that they have one 24-hour period until this action is due. I'm going to continue to build out those events however I choose, with whatever durations that I pick. If in use I eventually need to take an event and mark it as inactive, I can do so. Remember, once an event has been used in RB, you will not be able to delete it, but we can always mark it inactive and make it just go away. The second type of event that you may want to set up is a static event. These are events that have a fixed due date. So for example, I have a conversion event that's due before the end of the year. This event has a fixed date that marks that event as neglected, and it's useful for big picture follow-ups. Most follow-ups that we see in practice are dynamic events because they happen in the day-to-day operations of your business. If we have a certain series of events that are required for this item, once the events have been created, we can build out kind of a template list that employees can pick and choose from. Think of it as a menu when you build your follow-up. You'll see this again in action, but if you know right off the bat that certain events are going to chain with other events, we can build that out here by simply selecting the appropriate event in the drop-down and adding it to the list. In the event planner section, we can once again alter the days that are due and put in extra information, like the interaction method. If we're using our construction module, we can have RB automatically update the stage or tag the event with the stage. More information on this is specifically available in the instruction documentation for our construction module. We also can position the event by giving it a numeric ranking. This lets us know that in a normal workflow, these events should happen in a set order. When we're all done, we're ready to start using the event planner. Let's take a look at that next. Now that we have the building blocks of our events for follow-ups created, we're able to create follow-ups and task them out to our employees. You'll notice in my demo, I have signed in using the Remember Me feature. This allows me to see how many events, whether they are follow-up, sales leads, or even our internal messages, are on my plate at one time. Whether an employee is logged in or not, the follow-ups are still used in the same manner by accessing the follow-ups button from the quick bar. In your follow-up screen to begin with, you're probably going to be presented with a blank screen. That's because we haven't created any follow-ups yet. To create a follow-up, it's simple. We simply click Create New, and RB is going to present a dialog where we fill in the blanks. What type of follow-up? Well, I had a customer call. What customer was it? I'm going to find my customer from the list and select that customer. For a subject, I'm going to put a brief description of the information that I need for this customer. So in this case, customer inquired about a sand change. The next step, I'm going to select the staff that I am tasking this follow-up out to. This will assign that follow-up to that staff member, and they'll see it when they log in using the Remember Me key to their RB. If I want to predictively or preemptively assign a follow-up, but I don't necessarily want it to show up quite yet, I can change the appear date to a date in the future, and that's when the said follow-up will appear on the employee's schedule. This is my custom field that I created when I set the event type. If you didn't set a custom field, by default it will show as other info. And I select the initial event that kicked off this follow-up. If I have additional notes to include, I can type them freeform in the notes box. If you're a multi-location store, select the location where this follow-up lives. So if this is for a particular store in your chain, you can make sure that it's assigned to that store's staff. When you're done, you can either print and create if you want a hard copy record of the follow-up, or go totally digital and simply create the follow-up. Since I assigned this follow-up to myself, it appears in my follow-ups module. If I were a staff member interacting with the follow-up, I would do my task and then double-click the follow-up to enable the ability to edit the items below. As I work through the follow-up, if I have additional notes to include, I can put them in here. But most important is going to be my chain of events down at the bottom. I can either add a new event by selecting from the events that I've already created, or I can use the event template that we created and add multiple events to my task list. Simply select the tasks that I want to include and hit apply, and now I have a chain of events that I need to take care of to satisfy this follow-up. As I work through each event, I can select the different methods that I've interacted with the event for, or simply complete each event in the step so that the accountability trail for this particular follow-up is noted and signed off on digitally in RB. I'm going to make believe that I've completed all of these steps and mark them as complete. You'll notice that since I completed one of the prerequisite events earlier, it's going to adjust my dynamic event by a day because I completed this event a day early. If I'm right on time, I will complete the event normally. Once all events have been addressed, I'm simply going to select the close status and save the follow-up. Upon saving, RB will ask me to verify the date that I'm closed the event, and if my process requires it, I can send an enter RB message to another staff member. Now that the event is completed, my follow-up screen is empty once again. And when I log out of follow-ups, you'll notice I have no current follow-ups that I need to address. Sales leads work the exact same way as follow-ups, but they have additional information that's specific to a sale. Once again, we're going to start in the setup area and go to our company setup, and we'll visit the CRM Sales Leads tab. The setup process for sales leads is similar to the follow-up setup, but more refined because we have more variables for a sales lead. Like follow-ups, we have to identify the types of leads, but we have many other variables that can be tracked in sales leads that we have to build out first. Common areas include reasons we expire a lead, interaction methods, competitors, lead sources, and the custom field. Similar to our follow-ups, we are going to select a certain sales lead type. In this case, I'm going to build out a sales lead for spas. Each type has unique stages, competitor products that you can add, and in-house stock that you may wish to add. In this case, I added a bullfrog spa for my products, and I would add other spas to this list because this is a sales lead type specific to spa sales. Competitor products may be similar or variant products. These text boxes are free form and are not linked to your inventory. Lastly, RB allows you to define the quality of a lead. By default, we give it the good old 0 to 5 star rating. Graphically, RB will always represent the quality of a lead in stars, but you can give more descriptive text to each of the different star ratings. When you're done customizing this, you'll simply save. Once you've set up your sales leads, using a sales lead procedurally is the same as using a follow-up. I have a stale sales lead that's sitting here. My first item of business is going to be to expire this sales lead. It did not close, and it is clearly a stale lead. So I am going to say I lost contact with this particular customer. Once I save that, much like the follow-ups, my sales leads will be cleared. If I needed to create a new sales lead for a sales associate, the process is the same. I'm going to create a new lead, and I am going to be presented with a pop-up dialog. First and foremost, I'm going to select the customer that is tied to this particular sales lead. Again, I pick a location if this applies to my setup, and can type in any free-form notes about the lead that I would like. I'm also going to complete the right-hand column of information. This is a spa lead, so I'm going to put in a spa lead. I'm going to task it out to a staff member. I'm going to identify the type of lead. Remember, this action here in the lead type box is what populates your other options. Other info, again, is that custom field. If I want to select an estimated close date for this spa, I can. And in this case, I would like to close this spa a month from today. So I'm simply going to type in a date in that field. If I'm using lead stages, this is an optional field. I can identify the stage and source, as well as the product line that I've previously defined. If I know there's a competitor in play that we have defined, I can identify that competitor and their product as well. Since I don't know what my competitor's products are, I'm going to leave the competitor product field blank. Upon creation, I'm also going to rate the lead quality, and all leads in my store start at 3 stars, and then they get adjusted based on the interactions that my staff have with this potential customer. Last but not least, I'm going to add events, the same way we added them to the follow-ups. And just like follow-ups, I can use an event template to quickly and easily add a series of events to this sale. In the case of this spa sale, I scheduled showroom time, a follow-up call, and an in-person contact. When it's all said and done, if I want to print, I can print the lead. Or if I want to stay digital, I'm going to create the lead. And that lead now populates for my employee. Again, for our purposes today, I assigned it to myself so that it just shows up here. If I'm a manager that wants to observe leads across RB, I can look from the pull-down menu in the upper left-hand corner to see all the sales leads or a specific salesperson's sales lead as well. This helps me to better manage or input notes across many sales leads tasked out to many staff members at one time. To interact with the lead, I double-click the lead, and once again, the grayed out areas in the bottom 2/3 of the screen become available for use. The usage for this stage is exactly as it was for follow-ups. I can add events or templates if needed, complete individual events to check them off the list, adapt the lead rating or products as necessary, and step through my event until I either close or don't close and leave this particular sales lead hanging. In the case of this example, I'm going to close the deal. I've completed the sale, and I am going to mark the task as closed. When I save, just like with a follow-up, I'll have the option to mark a close date and send a message to a manager or another staff member if necessary. When I exit back to my main menu, I can see that all of my follow-ups and sales leads have been satisfied, and I have done my duty for today. As these populate, these numbers will change, and I'll be able to see them each and every time I log in or remain logged in with the Remember Me key in RB. Sales leads and follow-ups in RB are a great way to put practices, accountability, and process in place for your store. You're able to manage leads and follow-ups, have a consistent chain of events that happens for both processes, and hopefully close more deals. I hope that follow-ups and sales leads are a good fit for you. Check out our customer portal for detailed information on these processes, or feel free to reach out to training with any questions that you might have. Sales leads and follow-ups included in your core licensing in RB, just another way that you can stay on top of your staff and have better contacts and processes with your customers.